In this video, we're going to go through a list of 30 emergency events, and we're going to ask the question on whether we should bug in or bug out. Let's get started. Hey everyone, my name's Cliff, also known as the Urban Prepper, and I've recently been doing a reevaluation of my various emergency preparedness measures. And one of the things that I wanted to do was examine all of the various emergency events, and I wanted to find out, would I actually bug out in that type of situation? On default, most preppers would want to bug in for a lot of situations because that's where all your home supplies are at. You have a lot more food, you have a lot more water, you have shelter, and other things. When you bug out, you're basically on your own with a backpack. So what I did is I wrote down a whole bunch of common emergency events, and then I ran it by the folks over on my Discord server, the Preppers Guild, and asked them for additional ones, which we added to this particular list. We came up with a list of 30 emergency events. So for this video, what I'm gonna do is go one by one through each one of these events, and we're gonna put it on one of these poster boards on whether we should bug in or bug out. Again, we wanna default to bug in as much as possible. So for the bug out poster, I have it broken up into various rows. I have a row for seconds, a row for minutes, a row for hours, and a row for days. So you may wanna bug out in a matter of seconds, like if your house is on fire, for example, you're gonna get out of there as soon as possible with the family to make sure everyone is safe. You also may wanna bug out in a matter of minutes. For example, let's say it's just after an earthquake, you've huddled in place after the earthquake, and now you don't feel the house is too safe to be in. You might bug out in a matter of minutes then. Maybe you wanna bug out in a matter of hours. So if you have some kind of impending thing that's coming and you know it's gonna hit your house eventually and you don't think your house is gonna be safe, you can say, hey, we're getting out of here in 2 hours, pack your bags, let's go. And then you also have a situation that's a bug out in a matter of days. So it might be some type of situation that you know some impending thing is about to happen, and in a matter of days, you're no longer going to be able to be safe at your home in a bug out scenario. So in that case, you're going to want to bug out in a matter of days. So let's start going through the list now on all of the various events. Let's start off first with power outage. So if there's a power outage at your home, you're not going to be bugging out in that type of situation. You're going to ride it out, make sure that your freezers and everything are okay. So for power outage, we're moving that over to bug in. Let's move on to the next one, and that one is earthquake. I live in the Pacific Northwest along the Cascadia subduction zone, and we've been waiting for the big one over here. So earthquake is important for me. I think if an earthquake happened, I'm not gonna just start trying to bug out of wherever I'm at because you could get injured doing that. You could have glass falling on you. So for earthquake, you're probably gonna ride it out for the beginning, but then I'd imagine you might wanna get out of the home in a matter of minutes, maybe just to your front yard, for example, or just to a safe place if your home is no longer safe to be in. Again, bugging out doesn't necessarily mean you're just gonna go into the woods, for example. Bugging out could just be to your driveway, to your front yard, to your backyard, or to a nearby park. And commonly, the whole point is that it's a temporary rendezvous point for your family to regroup. Let's move on to the next one, flooding. So in the particular area that we're in, our home is on a hill, and so it'd be pretty hard for us to have major flooding here. But I'm thinking if you're talking about flooding that you see on the news, for example, where the family's up on the roof and they're trying to figure out what to do in a flooding situation, if you had some advance warning on that, I wouldn't want to be in that type of situation with my family. So I'd imagine that this is going to be something that would build up over time. And it might be a flash flood that could happen in a period of minutes, or it could be something that happens in a period of hours. I'd imagine that you probably have a little bit of warning on it. I'm gonna say bug out in a matter of hours then. Again, I don't want to have my family up on the roof in a major flooding situation. For me personally, we don't have to worry about this as much because of where we're located. We're on a hill, so basically the water would go down before it would kind of build up around the home. But we've all seen in the news where a house is completely surrounded by water. So in those type of situations, I think I would prefer to bug out and get my family safely away from that kind of event. Let's keep on going. So the next one I have is fires. So we're talking a house fire. You wake up in the middle of the night and your house is on fire. Now in a smaller fire, you're probably gonna want to put it out with your fire extinguisher. But let's say your whole house is on fire, something happened, and you just need to get out of the house. You're gonna want to bug out in a matter of seconds. So I'm gonna move this one over to bugging out in a matter of seconds for a house fire, for example. Let's keep on going. The next one I have is heat wave or a drought. Now, if there was a heat wave or drought, we don't really have that here in Western Washington, but I imagine in other regions you would have that. I think most likely in a heat wave, I would be bugging in. We'd probably all gather in one particular room of the house, kind of like you do in a power outage, and you would probably want to see if you could keep that one single room really cool, and so everyone's comfortable during that heat wave. It might also be a good idea to take a little family vacation during that time just to get away from the entire region. But I don't believe it's a bug out situation for me personally. Next, let's move on to martial law. So let's say that martial law is lockdown's declared or wherever you're at, are you gonna bug in or bug out? I think my default for this type of situation is probably gonna be to bug in. I'm not gonna wanna evacuate my home right away. We would probably just bunker in place for an extended period of time. However, this may be something that you might wanna move into bugging out in a matter of days, where you have some kind of impending doom that's coming and they declared martial law and you just wanna get out of there before that happens. If you have an advance warning that something like that might happen, it might be a good idea to bug out then. But I think I'm gonna default to bugging in. The next one that we have is gas leak. So you wake up in the middle of the night, you smell gas, and what are you gonna do? Are you gonna bug in or bug out? I think that's a bug out situation in a matter of seconds. So you wanna get everyone out of the home as quickly as possible and call a professional to hopefully fix that gas leak before something bad happens. The next emergency event is tsunami. So where we're located right now, we're kind of up on a hill within the Puget Sound area. And so a tsunami would have a greater impact on the far west coast of Washington state. So for me personally, a tsunami is gonna be a bug in situation because we have the high ground like Obi-Wan Kenobi. So I'm gonna move it over to bug in just because of our specific location. If I lived alongside the ocean and I knew a tsunami was coming and I had time to get out of there, I might consider doing that, although everyone's gonna be doing the same thing. So that one really depends on where you're located at. If I was at the beach, for example, and I saw the water just going out and I knew a tsunami was coming, I'd just run like heck in that type of situation. So that would be a bug out situation. The next item that I have is war. Let's say that your country is under war right now. What are you gonna do? You're gonna bug in or bug out? I think in the beginning I would default to bug in this particular situation. I'm gonna move it over to the bug in chart. I live in the United States, and who knows what war would look like if it happened here in my region. But I think on default, I'd want to bug in because that's where all my supplies are at. Let's keep going down the list. The next one we have is tornado. Now, we don't live in tornado areas, so this one isn't a concern for me. Now, if you had a tornado shelter at your home location, I'd imagine you'd probably want to get in there and not be in your home during a tornado. I think for tornado, I'm going to default to bug in if I had a tornado shelter. So I would take my family to that safe place. Maybe I have an Atlas survival shelter, for example. So I'm going to go bug in that situation. I'd imagine that many people besides the tornado chasers would probably be bugging out in that situation. Maybe the roads are congested and I wouldn't want to get my family trapped in that type of situation. So hopefully I did a little bit more planning and had a shelter ready to go. The next item is wildfire. Now, every year it seems like in California we're seeing a whole bunch of horrible wildfires that happened over there where just an entire neighborhood gets destroyed by fire. In those type of situations, I think that's a bug out scenario. You're probably going to have a little bit of advance warning, so it's not something that's going to happen in a matter of seconds or minutes. I'd imagine that you would have either hours or days to bug out in that type of situation. So for this one, I'm going to move it over to bug out in a matter of days. Again, I wouldn't want my family in that type of situation. I do think you may have some advance warning that was happening in your region. You just have to keep a close eye on it and to decide when was the time to bug out. The next item is plagues. So we have plagues, locust swarms, mosquitoes, spider infestations, and things like that. So on default, I think I would bug in and try to seal off our home from anything getting inside of it and create multiple layers, kind of like what you would do with a contagion, for example. So I'm gonna put it on bug in. Although if it was something where a bunch of spiders were getting in the home, I would bug out in that situation and then move it over to bug out in a matter of days row. Let's keep going down the list. The next one I have is internet collapse or heavy restrictions, like the Great Firewall, for example. I don't think that I would bug out in that type of situation. I would probably want to stay in place and use other communication methods if the internet had a total collapse, for example. So I'm going to move it over to the bug in chart. However, it would be nice to move to another country or maybe a state that has more of a mesh network where you could communicate with each other. But I think on default, bug in. Let's keep going down the list. The next one that I have is biological event. Like for CBRN, a biological event, that could be any kind of microorganism, virus, or toxins. This is basically like what we've been experiencing with COVID-19. So for all of us in COVID-19, I don't think anyone's really bugged out. So this is going to be a bug-in event. The next one that we have is a CME, also known as a coronal mass ejection. That's something that comes from the sun, basically, that would wipe out communications and electricity. In that type of situation, I'm not going to be bugging out by default. I'm going to be bugging in and bunkering into place. So let's move into the bug in chart. The next one that we have from Denise from the Discord server is sewage backup. Let's say there's this humongous sewage backup in your home. Your entire basement, for example, is flooded with sewage. Would you want to bug in or bug out? I think that's a bug out situation. I think you would know within a matter of hours that you're going to be bugging out of there. So let's move this one over to the bug out in a matter of hours chart. Again, that one's going to be something where you're going to be bugging out to a motel or hotel, for example. It's not like you're going out to the woods. But I wouldn't want to be living in our home if we had a bunch of sewage built up in it. The next one that I have is famine. So let's say a huge scarcity of food. I don't think that I'm going to want to be bugging out during a famine. I'm probably going to rely on my preps. That's why we prep a lot of food and my home garden if possible. So I think by default during a famine, I would want to bug in. The next item is a societal breakdown. So it's not just one type of event. There's a lot of events in history that could kind of equate to that. But let's just say that the fabric of society is breaking down all of a sudden. Do we want to bug in or bug out? I think in this one, you would probably want to default to bug in, but if you had a bug out location that was outside of that societal breakdown, I would probably consider going there. So let's say you had a location that you could go to if society in your particular region was just breaking down. Maybe you had a remote location, a family cabin or something like that. So I would probably consider that being a bug out situation in a matter of days. You probably have some advance warning on it. The next item is economic collapse. So let's say that the economy just collapsed, the dollar is worth nothing anymore, and people are using it for toilet paper. In that type of event, again, I think I would bug in because I have a lot of preps ready for that type of situation. So on default, I'm gonna put bug in. The next item that I have is volcanic eruption, which is something that we're concerned about because we live close to Mount Rainier. This is basically the plot line of the book series Cascadia Fallen, written by Austin Chambers. Now, for most people, I think this would be a bug-in situation if you're at some kind of distance from the volcano. However, if I was located extremely close to the volcano, like in the movie Dante's Peak, for example, I'd probably be bugging out in a matter of days. You'd probably see some seismic warnings happening that would probably say, hey, maybe we should go on a little vacation right now. So if you live in that type of situation, that would be a bug out in a matter of days situation. Although for me personally, I think it's gonna be a bug in. I would probably seal off the windows, kind of like what we would do for a plague or also for a biological event. The next event that I have is a pre-Civil War. So you think Civil War is about to happen. There's two major sides that are fighting with each other and stuff's about to go down. Would you want to bug out or bug in? I'm going to default to bug in this type of situation and lay low and follow the gray man principle because, again, I have a lot of supplies that are ready for this type of situation, although you would want to form some groups and form some communities as well. But I think by default, I would probably go bug in. The next one is another CBRN event, and that's radiological. So there's a radiological event. This one's a tricky one. Do you have an Atlas survival shelter, for example, that you could bunker in for a couple weeks? Or are you completely exposed to the radiological event? I think for me, if there was a radiological event and I had a means of getting away from it, I would probably lean to bugging out to a different location that's outside of that radiological event. So I'd probably go bug out in a matter of hours. This one would be a little bit tricky. You'd have to weigh various options. It all depends on what you have in your home. Do you have a good bunker that could shield you from that, or would it be better to just be outside of that location? The next one that we have is civil unrest. So a whole bunch of rioting happening in your area. We've experienced that a lot here in the Seattle area. I think on default, what we did here was we bugged in and we just laid low. So I think for most of these type of situations, I would probably choose to default to bug in during a civil unrest or rioting. But you would want to protect your home and the family that lives in there. I don't think that I'd want to be caught and stuck in my vehicle with my family during that type of situation. Next, we have another CBRN one, and that's for chemical. So let's say there's a chemical spill in your area and it's no longer safe to be there. Do you want to bug in that type of situation or bug out? I think this one's going to be a bug out situation in a matter of minutes. So grabbing those bug out bags and getting out of that chemical area. The next one that I have on the list is hurricane. Now, we don't live in a hurricane region in the Pacific Northwest, but if I did live in a hurricane region, I think most likely I'd choose to bug in by default in that type of situation, just bunker into place and protect my home as best as possible. You see a lot of people using boards on their windows, for example, to protect when an incoming hurricane is happening. So again, I'm going to move this one over to the bug in chart. Next, I have nuclear. So again, a CBRN event. So if a nuclear warhead or something went off in our area, would I choose to bug out in that situation or bug in? I think most likely I would choose to bug in that situation. We have CBRN outfits for the entire family, and we'd find a safe location to do that within the home that's shielded from a lot of what could happen during that. This one's a horrible one that hopefully never happens, but if it did, I think I would choose to bug in this situation. If I saw a big bright flash of light, get down right away to try to avoid any kind of shattering of the glass. If you're able to get past that, you'd want to find your safe location. We happen to build up our CBRN outfits for the entire family that we could use for that. And then you want to go to an area that has some shielding. For example, maybe you have an underground bunker or you have some just general shielding that has some layers of dirt that could help protect against that. But I think on default, I'm going to go nuclear. Hopefully this never happens. Actually, hopefully none of this ever happens, and this is just a big waste of time and energy. All right, we just have a few more to go down through the list. Let's move on to solar flare. That's kind of like CME. A solar flare, something that's going to knock out the satellites and electricity and things like that. For a solar flare, I'm defaulting to bug in. I'm not going to leave my home if a solar flare were to happen. And I've been doing a lot of protection of having various items in Faraday bags, for example, Faraday cages and Faraday bags like the ones that we've talked about for Mission Darkness. So I think if a solar flare were to happen, I'm going to be bugging in. All right, similar to that one, we have the EMP, the boogeyman of preppers, the electromagnetic pulse. Just like CME, just like solar flare, I'm bugging into that type of situation because we have items in Faraday cages and we have all of our preps here. I'm not just gonna bug out to the woods. Where would I go during an EMP? I'd rather be at home. And we do have a lot of our electronics shielded. So again, EMP is gonna be a bug in situation for me. The next event is a blizzard. In a blizzard, would you wanna bug out or bug in? There's no way I'd wanna bug out with my family during a blizzard. So this is gonna be a bug in for sure situation situation where we'd be bundling up, getting the house protected, and just really working on that shelter to make sure that we could ride this particular blizzard out. So I'm gonna be moving the blizzard one over to bug in. And the last emergency that I have for this list of 30 emergency events is ELE, which stands for Extinction Level Event. If you watched the movie Deep Impact, they talked about ELE, and that's basically like an asteroid were to hit the Earth or something major that would just wipe out everything on Earth. So for the final one, I'm gonna default to bug in, unless we had some kind of underground mountain facility that could last us for 3 to 4 years or something to ride out that extinction level event, kind of like what we saw in the movie Deep Impact. But I don't have that type of capability, so I'm gonna default to bug in. So let's take a final look at these poster boards. We have 21 of the 30 events in the bug in poster board, and we only have 9 of them in the bug out one. So here's what we have for bug in. We have power outage, heat wave, martial law, tsunami, war, tornado, internet collapse, biological event, economic collapse, solar flare, plagues, CME, famine, volcanic eruption, EMP, pre-Civil War, civil unrest, hurricane, nuclear, blizzard, and ELE. Those are all the events that I have for bug in. Now let's move over to bug out. So here's what we have. So we would bug out in a matter of seconds if there was a fire in our home or if there was a gas leak in the home. That's a bug out situation. Now for bugging out in a matter of minutes, we have earthquake and chemical. Again, these aren't like we're going out to the woods, for example. In an earthquake, we might just go out to the front yard. And during a chemical spill or something like that, we would go to a non-impacted region. But that's what we have for bugging out in a matter of minutes. For bugging out in a matter of hours, we have flooding, we have a sewage backup, and a radiological event. I'm still a little iffy on the radiological one. That might be a bug-in situation. But right now I have it as bug out in a matter of hours. Maybe that would be a time that we'd have to get those family CBRN outfits out. But right now I have it at bug out. And then last I have bugging out in a matter of days, wildfire and societal breakdown. For a wildfire, for example, you may have some advance warning that that was going to be happening in your area, and then at some point you'd probably have to bug out if your entire area was surrounded by fire. And a lot of families in their homes have had to go through this over in California, it seems annually. So that's going to do it for this video on 30 emergency events and whether we would bug in or bug out during those situations. I hope they enjoyed watching it. I provided this exact list in the description box below. Let me know what you think. Did I get it right or did I get some stuff wrong? Let me know in the comments section on what you would do for each one of those situations. You know, I was just rethinking that whole chemical one that we had here as far as bugging out in a matter of minutes. Now, if we're talking a CBRN, like chemical warfare, which is horrible, I think that I would probably choose to bug in that situation because we have CBRN family outfits and try to seal off the home as best as possible. I think I'm actually going to move this one over to bug in instead of having it in the bug out column, just because I do have some preparedness measures for that. Again, hopefully that never happens. It's a horrible thing. But I was just rethinking about it, and I think it should go over to the bug in one because of the capabilities that we've put into place. So now I have 22 of those emergency events over in bug in, and I have 8 of them over in bug out. So as you saw, I already changed something in the matter of making this video, and I think this is going to be probably pretty common, that I'm probably going to always be reevaluating the various events to determine, okay, am I going to bug in or bug out based off of my level of understanding and preparedness measures that I have at that particular time. A year from now, I'm going to be at a different level of my preparedness journey and I'll have a different understanding of things. I think it's a good idea to do this type of planning with your family, preferably, to try to decide what you would do and game plan it just in case that type of event were to happen. If you like these type of videos, consider subscribing to this channel. I focus on urban emergency preparedness. I also have a weekly and monthly newsletter email that I send out. If you like this particular video, make sure that you smash the like button because it does help out with the algorithms. Again, let me know in the comment section on what you would do during these type of events, and maybe we could refine the list and put it out as a PDF in the future. At the end of this video, I have a few recommendations on additional videos that I've done over the years on this topic. So if you want, you can keep watching. So thanks again for watching this video. Stay tuned for more emergency preparedness videos, and we'll see you next time. Take care.